Well, hello, everybody from the mountains of Utah. Welcome to Profiling Evil Live. We're underway here. We're going to have people start streaming in, I think, here in a moment. We've had a few technical difficulties, and we're going to pull it all together, but we're so excited about tonight because we have three Profiling Evil channel members who were given an opportunity to take a personal safety course. And in that course, it has curriculum along with a book and assignments. And I think you're going to really find this to be very interesting, and hopefully it will be empowering enough to each of you that you'll choose to take the course yourself. In fact, down below in the description area, you'll find that there is a link for a discounted price. The team has given Profiling Evil members a discount on this thing, but our guests tonight have actually received this thing free and clear, courtesy of the team. And so I want to bring in first my friend Randy Watt, who we served in policing for many, many years together. Chief, how you doing? And I don't know if
So something just happened. Did I lose your mic?
technical. Okay, folks, we're back. For some reason, we're having a few technical difficulties. So, Chief, if you can flip your phone landscape, I think it'll be a lot better image. There we go. Much better. How you doing, Randy?
I'm doing well, old friend. How are you?
I am well as well. Thank you so much for being here. You know, this has been an interesting journey, our lifetimes. I think back, I don't know, almost 40 years ago, we were street cops.
Oh, it's been, let's see, 45 years ago, Mike.
Well, you know, Bonnie made it very clear the other day that while we might be a lot older, we're still as immature as the day we graduated the
Oh,
academy.
there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I refuse to age gracefully.
Well, we've got a bunch of people starting to pile in, Randy, and we're going to be talking about this personal safety course. And as we get started, I wanted to just take a minute and kind of introduce you to folks. Randy and I, of course, we started many years ago as patrol officers, but Randy retired as the chief of police from the Ogden City Police Department, a police department that I love. In fact, I think you served more than 30 years at the PD, didn't you, Randy?
36.
36 years. Served in every component of the department. You spent a dozen years in SWAT and served as the SWAT commander and firearms instructor and defensive tactics instructor. And all the while you were doing that, you were also a soldier in the National Guard, achieving the rank of colonel, serving combat service in Afghanistan. And I think, let's see, you were in Iraq too, weren't you?
I was in Iraq twice. I did 1 year in Afghanistan right at the very beginning. And then I did a year in Iraq about in the middle, 06, 07. Then I did a year in Iraq in 10 and 11. And then I commanded the 19th Special Forces Group just before I retired. So all of my time, I had 34 years total, active duty and guard time. So those two careers kind of came together, and Special Forces being what it is, kind of became the root of this program that we're talking about, has its ties inside special operations.
Well, I think this is going to be really interesting tonight, especially to get the response from these three ladies who took the course recently. I was today more time. We may have lost me for a moment. There we go.
There you are.
But there we go. I'm up in the mountains, as you can tell. Starlink is pretty darn good, but it does have a few weak moments here and there. I was just thinking the other day, well, number one, I said I was going to be in New York next week, and you said you're going to be in New York at the same time I'm going to be there. I remember, I think when you were in one of the officer schools, I was in Pittsburgh working with the police department, and we ended up linking up there, didn't we?
Yeah. I was there for a conference, and we ended up there having dinner right on the river. It was a good time.
That's that's right.
You were
Well,
working for
so
Esri or one of those then, I think.
yeah, some scam job that I took after retirement that took a made life pretty darn nice. I want to bring in a couple of people here, Randy. We're gonna just get started, and I want to
Sure.
say thanks to everybody who's here watching tonight. And again, you can find out more about this course that we're going to talk about tonight in the links down below, including a special price there for Profiling Evil members. But the first person I want to bring in is Christine. Christine's meet Randy, and we
Hi,
we
Wendy.
had a little technical glitch at the beginning, but Christine, tell everyone a little bit about you without giving too much information because people will take advantage of it.
I get you. So I live in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I see a lot of changes in the world. And when I saw your show, I thought, perfect thing for me to read a book about how I can better take care of myself as a single person. And so my situation is I was worried about, going from my parking lot in my condo to my home. You have to be very aware of your surroundings all the time. So that's
And
me.
you live, I mean, it's a really beautiful place where you live, but there's still a big population in that part of Virginia, and
Yes.
uh, and so when you talk about the neighborhood in which you're living in, it's really interesting that you're thinking that far ahead, Randy. I often think about, I walk out of the mall at 9 o'clock at night, and I'm wondering if I ought to grab a burger on the way home. A woman is thinking about the shadows and the
Hmm.
vehicle out in the parking lot.
He's frozen again.
Yep. Yeah,
But
but I'm gonna pick it up from there because
okay.
when we developed this program, when Dan Schilling, the author,
Mhm.
and I got together, and Dan and
Looks
I,
like there we go.
yeah,
I'll tell you, this could be a long night, folks. But thanks, Christine. Let's now bring in Trish, and I think you know Trish, Randy.
I've known Trish for over 40 years.
So, Trish, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in this. And again, don't not too much information.
Well, I live in northern Utah, and I just recently moved up here after living in St. George for about 30 years. And I was interested in taking the course because when I moved back to northern Utah, everything had changed so much. So
Mhm.
when I was selected to take the course, I was excited. So when I did the little exercises, I went to Ogden and I started pretending like somebody was following me, and I did, and I was interested because St. George became my safe place. I was down there, and St. George became my safe place, and I thought I need to get used to because I do a lot of things by myself,
Mhm.
and I wanted things to become safe again. And I have I have been a victim of crime. I have been a victim of violence for many years. And and I when I did my keynote, or when I did my little things to be chosen, I have always been an intuitive person, and I wanted to learn to trust my intuition again. And
Well,
and
great.
he was
It's it's great to have you on here. Now, I want to bring in our third guest, and I saved her for last because I have known her for many years. And this is Michelle Morris, an attorney. I actually call her my legal counsel for Profiling Evil, Chief. And if you ever have a moment, go back and watch one of the videos that Michelle and I did where we talked about her father was a Texas Ranger, and
Mm.
she had a serial killer read bedtime stories to her. it was a predator that he pulled out of prison to go out to a field to identify where he dumped some bodies. And as he was heading home, it was late after hours, and he called his wife and said, "I'm heading home." And she said, "Hey, and if any of you have your computer on watching this, you're getting feedback, so you need to kill that and watch this after it's all over." But her mother wouldn't allow him to take this prisoner back without bringing him and feeding him. And so he he came to the house, and they fed him, and that while they were there, he read bedtime stories to Michelle. Now, listen, I'm slowly isolating who's got the echo coming on their thing, so and I'll let you know here. But Michelle, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Oh, let's see. I'm sorry, Michelle. There you go. Now
I
you're
can't
set.
hear my.
Now you're set.
Okay. As Mike said, I'm an attorney. I'm in West Texas. I live in the Permian Basin oil field. And I grew up in it because my dad was a policeman before I was born and all through all of my growing up years. So I was interested in the course when I watched the podcast that y'all did about it. And one of the big reasons is because I do a lot of teaching for people who have very dangerous jobs and wanted to make myself familiar with some of the things that I can help them do to be safe on the job. And as it turned out, I'm hoping that maybe we can implement some things to teach large groups of these people, maybe in concert with the course online that you guys have. It was a very interesting course, and I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Thank you, Michelle. And folks, Trish, I'm going to need you to just kind of let me know ready to talk, because I've isolated it now. For some reason, you're having feedback. So if you've got any other tabs open on your computer that are tied to this show, close everything but the StreamYard tab, and we'll try this again. But Randy, any thoughts as we get started? Now that you kind of know little bit more about the women that you've provided some content for?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of background here. When Dan first wrote the book, Dan and I go back to the mid '90s, serving in special operations together, and he got me the manuscript just before publishing, and I read it, and I said, "Look, Dan." And his goal was, as he stated, he said, "Look, I want to save lives. I want to change behaviors and save lives. And I think we can do this." And those of you that have taken the course and have or read his book know the story of what triggered that when he was robbed of all his goods in northern Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
A 30-year special operations veteran with a great deal of combat experience in hostile areas, and he missed his own signs, failed to heed his own intuition, and was robbed of a lot of a lot of money's worth of gear, and the opportunity to run the Baja 1000. So that triggered it, and then he went on this. He thought to himself, if someone like me can be that easily victimized, what happens to the normal individual who doesn't have all this training that we give to special operations forces and what we develop with ourselves? And so he went on a 2-year research tour, and he ended up with a book. And of course, I saw it, and these ladies are in the target group because the largest demographic of victims of violent crime, the largest single demographic, is female, and then from there you have other factors. And so when Dan and I got together and formed the company and said we want to do this, we want to save lives, this was really our target group because ladies see the world differently. Ladies experience the world differently. Ladies have different perspectives. They have we've built in some civilized behaviors. They're reluctant to be rude to somebody, even somebody without even realizing that they'll never see again. But the ability to tell them no, get
Mm-hmm.
the hell away from me. um, is very challenging and is very difficult. How to recognize key signs and behaviors that indicate certain things is far more challenging for them. Now, that doesn't exclude men. The average male has the same challenges in the same ways, maybe different, little different nuance, but the same thing because they're victimized as well. And so it was an opportunity to visit with you, Mike, and then to have these ladies take the course and discuss this because we'd like to see how it felt. We'd like to hear what their experience was in taking the course.
Well, I think this will be interesting, and I have a couple of questions that I'd like to maybe throw out, and we'll kind of do a roundtable. And I think we'll start off with Trish, and then we'll go to Christine and Michelle, and then we'll start rotating it around. But I'd like you to answer this question, and the first question is, what about the course impacted you the most? So we'll start with you, Christine, Trish.
I think the thing that impacted me the most was that I learned to trust my intuition again.
Thank you. Christine.
When I was watching the class and also with reading the book, I realized that, like Randy was saying, people get comfortable in their own lives. I lived in the New York City for 4 years, so I was always hyper alert about things, not going out after dark, watching the streets that I walked on, those kinds of things. But now that I live in kind of a smaller town and country, I feel like I've gotten comfortable with my life because, we talk about safe and unsafe in the book. You feel very safe in your environment. And then the second thing that really interested me was the fact that after you leave, like if something happens to you, you need to get as far away from that situation as possible. And sometimes when people, something happens to them, they either freeze or they become so confused that they don't know what to do. And when he was saying put distance, as much distance as possible between you and the person that wants to harm you, I thought that's something really important to remember.
Great. Michelle.
One of the biggest impacts for me is that I realized that a lot of the principles that were covered in the book were things that I had been taught by my law enforcement dad growing up, but I'd never heard them articulated in any meaningful way. It was just, this is what you do when you go off to college. You keep your head on a swivel, that sort of thing. Having those items articulated and being able to be intentional about each one of them because they are well articulated in the book and in the course really has made a difference for me. And I too realized that I have become a lot more accepting of my safe zones and had really kind of quit paying attention in my safe zones as much as I needed to. And so that's probably been the biggest impact. When I'm leaving work in the afternoons, I realized I had my head down and I was thinking about cases and work and walking to my car rather than looking at my surroundings and paying attention to that, which should have had my first attention.
Yeah, interesting. Chief, what are your thoughts?
So a number of key things that were said there that come right out of that. Learning to trust and heed your intuition is a big part of what we're doing. There are three parts to the book. There's the first is know, and that has to do with your surroundings. That's being aware and then listening to what your intuition is telling you. So when we talk about awareness, we talk about knowing your surroundings, what's around you, what's going on in those surroundings, and how you fit. What's your place in that activity as it's going on? In order to do that, you have to have your head up. You have to have your phone in your purse or your pocket. You have to have the earbuds out. You have to be paying attention to what's going on, right? And then that computer, that internal computer that's running, and it's gathering data at the unconscious level. It's gathering data and it's running, and it's saying, I don't like this, I like this, or I don't like this. Because intuition works both ways. It tells you good things and also identifies things that you want to pay attention to. But the fact is recognizing it. We have, as a society, for so long suppressed those kinds of things that it's amazing as we train people how many have to really reach down and find that again and bring it back up. And it just becomes a part of normal everyday living. Our intuition is constantly going,
Mm-hmm.
and it's constantly sending us signals. Are we heeding them? And then the piece that I really liked was, I've been told these things, but had never been articulated. That's the concept of training. We hear this a lot from cops and from soldiers and others. Look, I already know how to do all this stuff. No, you don't. You know some keywords and phrases in your head, but you've never truly trained on how to specifically conduct these activities. Now, when somebody tells you, be aware, what does that mean? What does
Mm-hmm.
it mean to actually be aware? What does it mean to actually understand flows, identify anomalies, evaluate anomalies? What does that mean? And that's what the program is designed to do, is to do those things. I think these ladies have hit it right on the head. Um, with this first question, they've hit it right on the head about the impact. My follow-up question would be, and one of them has already answered that, but my follow-up question would be is, how has this changed your behavior?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. So let me just go completely backwards. Let's start with you, Michelle. We'll go to you, Christine, and then to Trish.
I've made a point of looking around when I leave out a building, even if it's a place that I've come out that door, 1,000 times. I'm making a point of looking at what's around me, paying attention, leaving work at work or until I get home. And especially when I'm traveling by myself, it's a lot easier for me to pay attention when I'm traveling. I take care of both my parents who are pretty elderly. And so a lot of times I'm worrying about them, but it's made me much more aware that particularly when I'm responsible for them, I have to pay attention to what's going on around me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the
Christine?
same way. I walk a lot and I wear earbuds and listen to the news or music or whatever. And I realize that when you do that, you really don't hear the sounds around you. So I've kind of started wearing only one so that I'm more aware. I really do look, instead of focusing on where I'm going, I do look around a whole lot more. And I like the practice sessions in the course and also in the book, because as I go out into the public, I'm starting to practice those different things that I need to look for. And I think that's changed my perspective a little bit about where I sit and, who's coming and going and things like that when I'm out in public.
Trish.
The other night I went to the store and it was dark. So when I parked, I made sure I parked closer. Normally I just park. I don't pay attention to where I park. But I made sure I parked closer to the entrance where there was a light. When I left the store, I carried my keys because I was taught in a self-defense course many years ago to carry my keys with one of my keys through my finger, kind of a self-defense tactic. And I made sure I carried my keys that way, made sure I locked my car when I left my car so somebody couldn't get in it. And I made sure that the packages I was carrying were so that were not in my way, so that I was able to defend myself should somebody tried to accost me. So
Mhm.
I was much more aware when I left the store in the dark, and I kept my eyes out, or I kept watching my surroundings as I made my way to my car.
That's great. There's a principle in victimization that suggests that we place our own value system on the predators around us, and we think to ourselves, I would
Yeah.
never go out and hurt someone. I would never go out and assault someone. And when we do that, we think we're taking some higher road, but there's a real fine line, Randy, between following that intuition and also remaining a cool, good human being. And we're starting to see that kind of come together now as you all are talking. Uh, and I've seen over and over again victims who get themselves into trouble because they think, I just can't believe anyone would act that way. But the world is full of people who would act that way.
Mhm.
Well, you and I know that from our law enforcement careers, and you look at how your specialties you developed in your law enforcement careers, and then I did the same, and we know that the majority of the population are good people. We also know that there are predators out there.
Mhm.
We we have a history in Utah and Salt Lake City, and we talk about it in the book of Ted Bundy. And you look at that case. You look at how he accomplished, which is why he's in the book. You look at how he accomplished victimization of people,
Mhm.
females, and when you look at how he overcame their natural instinct and drew out the good person in them that just wanted to help. And in the book, we talk about and in the course, I'm sorry, in the course we talk a lot about um, how how to look at people and read things. What does a sneer mean? If someone's sneering, they're going through a dehumanization process with you. The words we talk about congruence. Do the words match the facial expressions, match the actions? Okay? Or is there congruence? If there's incongruence, then something is way off. And I would bet by then that your intuition is going off, like an alarm. But some people still don't hear it. When you read the story of the young lady who ended up in the Volkswagen with Ted Bundy handcuffed, who was able to escape, thank goodness. Um, she takes you right through that whole thing, and how that happened. And that is very normal behavior. And you're absolutely right, Mike. You know, um, when you read about Ashley, who's victimized by a person that she didn't want to be rude to, she did not let him in, but then she lost her attentiveness to what was going on. She ended up being victimized. And you read those cases and you see those common behaviors that exist in our society and in our civilized world here in the Western world in particular. And we're trying to help people, and what the course does is walk them through this. The other thing I really like is hearing that you're doing the exercises, because education expands knowledge, and the course, as you view it, expands your knowledge. Training produces specified performance. And so when you go out and you apply those things, you're actually training yourself, and you're training the brain, and you're rewarding the brain for exercising the right actions, the right activities. And the brain is going to be willing to tell you to do it again.
Mhm.
Perfect. Hey, folks, we're talking about a program called The Power of Awareness. I have Chief Randy Watt on, who's one of the owners of this company that's put this together. Spent 36 years in policing, retired as a police chief. Also retired as a colonel in the United States Army Special Forces. Spent time overseas. We also have three guests from the Profiling Evil family who have joined us, who actually took the course. And there's some special pricing. You can hit that QR code, or you can go to the links down below if you're interested in a course like this. If you're not, just listen in. I think you're going to pick up some really good things as we go along. Also, I know I'm going to hear from somebody that I didn't have names written underneath each of your pictures, folks. I don't know how to do it. And I've looked at it and I've tried to figure it out. So first, Christine, raise your hand. And I want y'all to meet Christine. Trish, please raise your hand. This is Trish here. And then Michelle. And many of you know Michelle, who I've had on many times on Profiling Evil to chat. But and I really appreciate the kind of comments that are coming in, especially the comments reinforcing the idea that you really do need to be prepared. Some people are saying carry a weapon, Randy. Others are saying carry pepper spray. And I'm hearing three ladies now that are talking about just the power of awareness, which is the course name. So maybe you could take a moment, share some thoughts in regard to those weapon choices. And then I've got another question I wanted to ask everybody.
Sure. So this course is designed, so we call, in special operations, we call martial arts, we call the weapon, the use of firearms, the use of violence to solve a problem. And I know what some people say, but occasionally violence is the only solution to a problem. But we call those hard skills. And to be effective with a weapon, to be effective with pepper spray, to be effective with your hands, fists, feet, requires a great deal of training and a great deal of effort and emphasis and continual practice. And most people just cannot afford and to put the amount of time and resources in to do that. When we send lone operators on missions in semi-hostile and hostile areas in the world, sending them by themselves, we emphasize these very things that you're talking about, that we are talking about here. We call them the soft skills. When we send these guys some part of the world, no one's coming to get them. So the last thing they want to be involved in is a fight. The last thing they want to be is identified by members of the foreign government or the hostile nation. What they want to be able to do is identify problems, escape, and evade. And so that's the cornerstone of the course, right? Is learning how to be what truly situational aware is, and how to use it, how to listen to your intuition, because the next step is, as the ladies know, defining and determining whether or not you have a problem. Mm-hmm. If you have a problem,
so let me just stop you right there, Chief, because that brings up the question that I had here. And we'll start with Christine this time and then go to Michelle and then to Trish. But what does situational awareness mean to you, ladies, now after taking the course?
Yeah, it's so funny because I was talking to my sister about this tonight, because we go to a restaurant that we're very aware of. We go there all the time. But, situational awareness is wherever you are in your life, you have to stop and look around and make sure, are you safe or unsafe? Is it familiar, not familiar? And understand what's happening around you, because you become more aware of what's happening, so that if something does happen, you have which is the next step, a plan, to help yourself if the situation that you're in changes.
Great. Trish, let's go to you next. And the question again, what does situational awareness mean to you now after taking the course?
I look at things differently when I go out now. When I go to a restaurant, when I go to a store, when I enter a parking terrace, I look at things differently now. I'm more aware. I plan an escape route. Mm-hmm. I think, what if something happened? How would I leave? How would I how would I get out of it if something happened? Because because through the course we've learned different I have learned different there's different ways there's different ways and sorry, sometimes I have a hard time finding words because I've had a stroke, and sometimes I have a hard time finding my words. I'm sorry. um
No, no. This, I think what you've said is great, Trish. Michelle?
For me, at this point, I have to say that situational awareness is now living without being in fear, by having the ability to assess my surroundings as familiar or not, safe or not safe, and calculating risk and opportunity in that situation so that no matter what happens, I'm ready to respond.
So, Mike, if I may jump in here, so that what these ladies are describing is, I feel very rewarded by what they're saying, because this is exactly what we're trying to put across to people. We help people strategize on how to categorize areas. The brain naturally wants to categorize things. That's just part of the Western way of life, and so we categorize them as safe or unsafe, familiar or unfamiliar. And there are four categories: safe and familiar, and of course unsafe and unfamiliar, being at the two ends of the spectrum. And if we learn how to categorize that, it helps us adjust our behaviors to that area. So that's the level of risk that they're talking about. And then with situational awareness and with intuition, when they apply those things, they're looking at it. Now, I've had people tell me after courses like these or giving talks on this stuff that it sounds like paranoia, and I just can't live in that paranoid world. And so, but what I tell people is it's not paranoia, it's preparation. It's understanding your environment, and that it's easy to live at this level. And I'd like to ask the ladies, yeah, now you're more aware, but are you feeling better about your world as a result? Because we believe it helps build confidence in our world. Michelle, I saw you had your hand up.
Well, I wanted to just add into what you were saying that while we were doing these exercises, I kept coming back to Mike's victim risk continuum that he's taught us about repeatedly on profiling evil, and how those two mesh together. Basically, you can, at least what I took away is that you can reduce risk of being a victim on that continuum by using the assessments that are taught in the program. And in my opinion, things become much less fearful when you're prepared.
And that's our feeling too.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the cool part about training too, Randy? Is when you train, and I think back to the graveyard shifts we were working, where we were just doing officer survival tactics night after night.
Yeah.
When something goes wrong, you respond intuitively, and you gain a level of confidence.
Yes, and that's part of it. Another byproduct of that confidence is you look at a wide variety of studies, and Mike, you'd be very familiar with them, of how predators pick their prey. Just as in the wild, wild predators, they would eat better if they went after the big, fat, healthy animals, but they go after the lame, they go after the injured, because there's a risk reward formula there, and that is the bigger animals put up a much harder fight, and you really have to earn it. And if you're a member of the pack and you get injured, the pack's either going to do you in themselves or they're going to leave you. Well, human predators have some of the same things. They don't want to fight. They want domination and capitulation by the victim as rapidly as possible. They don't want witnesses, so they can't afford a lot of noise. They can't afford, you know, a long-term price. So one of the things that a lot of these studies show is that if a person is portraying confidence, they are often not the one picked as a target. And that's a byproduct of what it is that we're trying to do with the online training program.
So, ladies, a question that comes to me is when you're now out and about, are you more apt to look somebody in the eye and say hello, but make that actual recognition that says, "I know who you are," than you were before? Or and Randy, what's the strategy around things like that?
Well, I'll let the ladies answer first, and then we'll talk about it.
I think I can answer first. When I was taking the course, I was kind of thinking the same way. Like, the course is not out there to scare you and say, you know, this is going to happen to you, or, you know, you should walk around in fear in your life because this will happen to you. I think when I took the course, it made me, you know, you're reading it and you're going, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I do that. Or I know to do that. I should be more aware and start practicing that more. And I think if you take all of the application and you apply it to your life, it becomes habit. And so it's not hard work after that, right? So you're not constantly thinking about it. It just comes naturally. And I think as I've applied it to my own situations, when I walk downtown, I do keep my head up. I don't use my phone because there's really no reason to be on the phone. But, you know, looking around, seeing my surroundings, seeing people that are walking past me maybe more than one or two times, being aware of corners, things like that. But at the same time, while I'm practicing that, I'm still enjoying being out there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
It's awesome. Michelle? Oh, let's go. Okay, Trish.
I agree with Christine. It has given me much confidence, much more confidence. It to me it doesn't bring me fear because to be prepared gives you confidence to me.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm out in public, I hold my head up and I'm able to walk down the street and put a smile on my face and do my thing. And it gives me, and I'm grateful for the course, for the things it has taught me. And the more that I put it into practice, the more I'm able to do things. And I'm grateful for what the course has taught me. And I'm just, and I like to go and do things and then pretend sometimes like somebody, you know, like it's a worst case scenario. And then I think, now how am I going to get out of it? And I pretend like it's not the best, it's the worst case scenario. And then kind of like that, like in the course where she went counterclockwise to get to her hotel.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then she didn't know if it was really the guy was after her or not. But then I do that. I've done that a couple of times, just so that figuring out those kind of things. So I'm
Thank
grateful
you.
for.
Well, I've always been a look people in the eye, make eye contact, you know, direct interface with people kind of person. I kind of have a boisterous personality. I know that's hard to tell, but that certainly for me has not changed. When I first saw the title of the program before you guys appeared on Profiling Evil the first time last month, I did wonder if the program would include some fear mongering and, oh, let's all, you know, be afraid of worst case scenarios and that sort of thing. But I found that there's nothing scary about the program. Even the examples that are used are not scary situations because they're very clearly another time in another place, and probably in the moment might have been scary, but not to the reader, not to the student. And it certainly has not generated any kind of fear, but like the others said, more of a confidence and preparedness in dealing with other people and just making note of who you meet on the street and who's around and that sort of thing. Very beneficial.
Mhm. Hey, Mike, can I just say that, when a lot of times people take courses and it can be very daunting. This course was so easy. The flow of the course, the information that was given, it was a very uplifting, and very educational. And I didn't feel like I was working hard to understand the material. I love the scenarios, and then because as a teacher, I do, teach my children and then they practice. And so I felt like it was the same, things that my students do in the classroom. So it's super easy to follow.
Awesome. Randy?
Yeah, well, that is part of our intention, was not to create fear. People living in fear or acting out of fear are going to act inappropriately, and they're going to live in difficulty.
Mhm.
This course is designed for people to become confident in their goings about the world, so that you can feel confident about going anywhere. You can use, there are two kinds of intuition that we talk about. There's planning intuition and threat intuition. Planning intuition, for instance, would be like for a realtor who's going to go out and make a house contact. He's going to meet somebody at a house and show a house, a one-on-one type of a thing. There's inherent risk in that. So you use the planning principles to prepare to go. You establish what we call a cutout with another individual. You establish reporting times. You establish messaging. It's real simple. It's real easy. And you can go confidently and safely and do the things that you do because you have established a plan. You've made that plan. And then, of course, threat intuition and making what we call a hasty plan. The threat intuition means something is happening right now. Okay, so let's make a hasty plan. And we talk about ways of making hasty plans, but the goal is to separate from the incident as rapidly as possible, put as much distance as you can between you and the problem, find a secure location and regroup. We talk about it's rule 6. We talk about recover and regroup. And okay, so now I'm here. What's the best way to get back in? And like Trish talked about, once the young lady regrouped and had her plan and chose a different path to return to her hotel. One of the biggest things we run into, Mike, is you can't prove a negative, right? And so this is what desensitizes people. And I'm kind of warning the ladies in the audience about this. Over time, nothing ever happens, right? People say to themselves, well, that's never happened to me. So over time, we don't know if it's, our actions or activities that kept us safe, or that nothing was ever going to happen anyway. And it desensitizes us to it. And so we talk about it, as ladies will tell you, we talk about it in the book. We talk about it in the course.
Mhm.
You should do what you know is right. And what you know is right is to follow those things, right? Those three parts: know, prepare, and act, that are the main three parts of the program. And then follow those 6 rules to build your life around. It's relatively simple, but you have to be trained in it. You have to learn this stuff and then take it out in the field and apply it, make it part of your thinking process, and then it becomes part of your acting and your actions process out there. You feel safe, you feel confident because you are prepared. And that's the result. That's exactly what the program is designed to do.
Perfect. So what I want to do now for the minutes that we have left is I want to give you ladies a chance to ask Randy some questions, and then we're going to take some questions from folks out in the audience. But Randy, this is kind of a departure from my normal choir practice, where we bring in cops and we chat about things. But I think it's important to remind people what choir practice is. So why don't you tell them what choir practice means to a cop?
Well, it depends on whether or not you read Joseph Wamba's books way back, right, Mike?
That's
Um,
right.
so, yeah, a choir practice is an impromptu, informal training session where we blow off some steam, but we also make sure we're aware and we know what to do when the chips are down.
There you go, folks. People keep asking, and I got to just play this because he's just such a good friend.
Hey everybody, look who I'm hanging out with. And listen, I'm not attending choir practice, but I just wanted to tell you that you need to be watching Profiling Evil YouTube. Don't miss it. I'm telling you, there's something there for you every single time. I never miss. You shouldn't either.
So there you go. Make sure you're joining choir practice every month, folks. It's on the first Monday of every single month. Randy, there was a question I thought was really a great question, maybe more of a statement from Jen Johnson. I really worry about the younger generation glued to their phones. I'm going to say even the older generation. I see so many just walking around looking at their phones heads down. So dangerous. Thoughts?
Well, I've got to echo her sentiment. We have to help, particularly the young generations, understand. So we have, the 5 primary senses that we use to shape our world, right? And the 2 most powerful are sight and hearing, right? Our auditory, and so we can be distracted both by an item like a phone by focusing on it, or distracted by our own thoughts. So we're not actually seeing what we're looking at. One of the things we talk about a lot in the course is seeing what you're looking at. If you can't analyze and evaluate what you're seeing, you're not going to make good decisions. And so if you are distracted, I believe it was, Michelle talking about worrying about her parents while she's, driving and moving about, and it can get overwhelming in your mind. We try to get people to understand, okay, so what's important now in this activity that I'm doing? What's important now? The You win 100% of the fights you don't get in. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to help people identify potential problems before they're close enough to become an actual problem and separate themselves from that environment. If you are distracted mentally or physically by a device, then you're not seeing your most powerful sense when it comes to danger. If you have earbuds in, or you're again distracted and you're not hearing the sounds around you, you're not recognizing the things in your immediate area, then you have turned off the 2 primary senses that identify danger. And we're telling people to look, that call, that video, that YouTube, whatever it is, that's not the most important thing right now. So put the phone in your pocket or in your purse, pull the earbuds out. Use those when you're in a safe and familiar environment. Right? That's where those belong.
SP Mama says, hey, I use earbone headphones. That way I can hear the podcast and have full hearing of everything around me. I've never used those, so I don't know. But ladies, do you have a question from Randy? And then Randy, as we kind of wrap up, I want you to tell people how they can get the course. And of course, the links are down below, folks, in the description area. And if you're interested, you can grab this QR code, and that will get you there. But let me just start with the ladies. Do you have some questions for Randy?
I do. In the book, there's a scenario where somebody's in a restaurant and they talk about being aware of the people that are there, where the kitchen is, how do you go to the bathroom? Is it a safe area to go to the bathroom? And my question is, if you were a single woman or in a group of women that were out, if there was one door in and out, where would you sit in the restaurant? What do you think is the safest place in the restaurant? Is it by the door or is it further in?
So, what gives you the best vantage point that, as you're comfortable in eating and interacting, still gives you the ability to spot the anomalies, spot the changes in the environment that occur? It sometimes it's closer to the door, but that's also oftentimes the busiest area in the place, and so you're
Mhm.
inundated with a lot of people standing, talking, waiting for tables, moving in and out. Um, an area where you only have to look 180 degrees forward. So you've got, you know, your back to an area, the way you're seated. So it it reduces the amount of attention you're paying because you're not surprised by sounds or actions or activities behind you. So it just depends. You evaluate it. Your intuition will kick in on it, on that very question, and your situational awareness will help you decide. You'll get to the point where you're walking in and you're saying, I'm going to sit over there. And it may not make a whole lot of immediate sense to you, but that's exactly what the training programs, your brain begins to be shaped and influenced into how to select these kinds of things.
Is that as you train, I'm going to have a harder time.
We're not hearing you, Mike.
Oh,
There you are. You're
there
back.
we go.
You're back.
So I don't know if you got my question, but my concern is the more people you train to do these things, the harder it's going to be for me to find a restaurant seat with my back
There you
against the
go.
wall.
There you go.
But Trish, do you have any questions for Randy as we start putting this thing to bed?
I do. If you're with a group of people and your intuition tells you that you should not be doing something, and how do you get the group of people to go with you, and they're telling you that you're kind of up in the night, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so you might just quickly help them understand that you're not comfortable with this event, that something is telling you that this is not a good thing to happen, and that you are leaving, and you recommend they go with you. You can't make their choice for them. Now, remember what we said about your intuition. Remember we talked about if your intuition is triggered, it's triggered by something real. It's not triggered by imagination. It's triggered by something real. So if your intuition is telling you, don't be here. I have a friend, a good friend. He's well known in the tactical training and firearms training world by the name of John Farnham. You can research his name, but he has what he calls the rules of stupid. The rules of stupid say, don't go to stupid places at stupid times to do stupid things with stupid people, right? And so I think there's great value in John's rule, in that it helps you just think about, all right, does this make sense? Does it make sense to be doing this at this time? Am I making myself safer, or am I making myself less safe by involving myself in this time in this activity? And do I really care? And let's go back to some of the basics. Do I really care if these people think I'm up in the night if I leave? Do I really care? I would hope not.
Yeah, there you go. Michelle?
Well, you took my smart aleck question away. I was going to say when you go to dinner with four cops, who gets the seat against the wall, but I guess you put the fastest reflex person there, right?
That's right. That's right. Who gets there first?
The one thing about the entire program that I have not yet figured out is how, in a situation where Dan was wanting to do his fast air activity in Mexico. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he had a mission to do that. And so he parked his truck and went. What else could he have done in the middle of the desert to
Right. So
protect his
what Dan,
property
yeah.
without foregoing his trip?
So Dan talks about two things in the book. Number one was, as soon as he drove through those small villages and he noticed how the people were acting, he knew in his mind he shouldn't continue. He knew something was off. But Dan takes a great deal of joy from speed flying, and he, Dan. I don't remember how much he gets into the book, but he's quite a base jumper, and he holds the record for the most base jumps in 24 hours. I think it was 204 off the Twin Falls Bridge in Idaho, and so Dan is an adrenaline junkie, and as many of us in that world are, and so he ignored that. And then the second thing was, a thought popped into his head that he should take his valuables after he parked the vehicle and hide them under a bush, or hide them, someplace in the desert, or because remember what they're going to do is they're going up there with only the gear to speed fly off that mountain and fly down to the vehicle and get back in it and drive away. So he couldn't take them up on the mountain with him, because then he'd have to climb back up to get them all. And so he thought, maybe I'll take them a little ways from the vehicle and I'll hide them. And he said, I'm just being, overly cautious. Nah, I don't want to do that. We'll get up to the top. And remember, it took him, I think it was an hour and 20 minutes to climb to the top. He said, we'll get up to the top, we'll fly down, we'll get in our vehicle, and we'll leave. And they get to the top. And of course, you've seen the video, right, in the course where he's swearing because they're standing on top of the mountain. There's not a thing they could do as they watch their vehicle and hundreds of thousands of dollars of gear drive off, never to be found again in Old Mexico.
So he ignored his intuition.
He ignored his
basically
intuition.
The problem.
He ignored his intuition, and when his brain tried to get him to make a plan, he ignored that too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is such a great way to end this discussion. And to you three ladies, thank you so much. Number one, for your willingness to step out on the thin ice and take this course and share your comments today. And I'm going to give you each a minute to just encourage people. I want to thank Ether Bunny for that kind donation too. Thank you so much, Ether Bunny. That's very kind of you. Randy, and then I'm going to give you the final word, which I don't know. I guess I've probably done that probably more in my career than I've wanted to, but I'm going to give you the final word. And I'd like you to tell people where they can find the course. Again, you can get the information in the description below, but we'll take it to that point. So let's start with you, Trish, and share what recommendation you may have. Christine, you, and then Michelle.
I would highly recommend taking the course. It has given me a new lease on life, and it just gives you so much awareness. Gives you so much awareness. Gives you a feeling of confidence. Gives you a feeling of being safe, gives you a feeling of confidence, gives you a feeling of being all right in your world, and being able to do the things you want to do.
Thank you.
I can't say enough good about it. Thank you for allowing me to do this.
So Christine? I feel the same way. I think the course was super easy to take, and I definitely recommend, if you're going to get the course, to share it with your family. If you have children in the house, teenagers, I think it's a great course for them to take as well, so that they're aware of how to move forward in their lives to keep them safe. I also actually actually recommend the book. I think the book was wonderful. It does follow the course, but there's a lot of extras in it, especially in the appendix, where it gives you checklists on different things that you do in your life and how you can keep yourself safe within those certain situations, especially if you're traveling overseas, which I thought was really, really good. So I would absolutely make sure you look at the appendix in the back of the book, but I definitely recommend the course as well.
Thank you. Michelle.
I would like to say to those that are going to take the course, do not quit early. Take it all the way to the end, because the last 2-part rule is about regrouping and recovering. And I am so thankful to the authors of the program for including a real emphasis on the fact that recovery is a necessity when you've been through a trauma. And it's so important. And I'm so appreciative that it's in the book, and so appreciative of the opportunity that I got to take the course. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Randy, it's all yours.
Yeah, ladies, thank you so much for your words, as well as for your actions in taking the course. It's very rewarding for me to hear that you're out there putting it into practice. And I know Dan feels the same way. This was the whole purpose Dan wrote the book. It was to protect people, save lives by helping them change their behavior and know some of what we in special operations know about the soft skills and how they can affect the world. Truly, the title of the book is dead on, and that is The Power of Awareness. It's the Power of Awareness Institute. It's the website is mypoa.org. You can go to that website and you can find all the information you need. I highly recommend that you go to Mike's links, because Mike has a discount for the program that doesn't exist directly on the website. So I would take advantage of that as well. And then we would appreciate feedback from people as they take the course. There are comment sections that you can put comments in, and you can help us out, because we would like to know. We would like to hear from you how it's affecting you, and how you're putting it into play, and the freedom that it has given you. And Mike, thank you so much for this platform and the ability to talk about this, and maybe by doing so, you don't have another case to profile sometime in the future.
Well, thank you, Chief, and thanks for 4 decades of friendship, for
Absolutely.
example. And folks, I've known Randy in personal capacities and in professional capacities. I had a flashback this morning, Randy, as I was heading up. I'm up in the hills cutting some lumber or wood today, and I had a flashback of a New Year's Eve and trying to get handcuffs on Mr. Maines, and the fight we had there. And anyway, always
West 27th Street or West Binford or something, right?
That's right. I've never fought so hard. In fact, I think when we were done, we were laying on top of him, gasping for air, and I said, "You know all this martial arts stuff. Why didn't you kung fu him or something?" Folks, his wrists were so big we couldn't even get a pair of handcuffs on his wrist. But we eventually won. But folks, thank you so much, and thanks for tuning in to Profiling Evil. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. And if you're liking audio podcasts, make sure you're subscribing to Profiling Evil Podcasts. Send us a note at profilingevil@gmail.com. And if you have some personal questions for Randy or for Dan, send them to me. I'll forward them on. And then if they respond to them that way, that'll be great. Ladies, thank you again for taking the time to do this. And from everybody at Profiling Evil, folks, I hope you have a great night. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.